This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses for film professionals to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com. Of course, follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Every week, we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by VFX Supervisor Rob Legato, whose work includes Titanic, Apollo 13, and more recently on Apple TV+, the movie Emancipation, just to name a few of his projects. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I'm wondering, how did you get involved with Emancipation?
I got primarily involved because I've worked with Bob Richardson like five or six films by now, and he called me up and he wanted me to help him kind of help come up with the look of the movie. And I'm a second unit director and cameraman, and he wanted me to shoot the additional footage that we need for the film. So he literally called me up out of the blue, and you know, it was very intriguing what he wanted to do. And you know, we've collaborated before on the looks of films like Hugo and Aviator, and you know, it seemed to work out pretty well. So he called and he told me about the project and Antoine, and I was like, yeah, I was definitely, you know, all for it. So that's how essentially I got involved, just literally a cold call from Bob Richardson, the DP.
I'm going to interrupt this interview for 1 second. We want to thank PixelView, one of our sponsors. They're a streaming solution for filmmakers. PixelView lets you stream your work to remote clients for easy collaboration, and it works with both on-set teams and post-production teams. With built-in video chat, you can discuss and make changes in real time and stream directly from your editing software. Or you can use the hardware encoder to stream from DaVinci Resolve or the camera on set. See the promo code and the link in the video description below. So what was it about the look that you and Bob discussed that sort of attracted you to it?
At one point it was, they wanted to be more or less black and white, but then it wasn't necessarily settled that it was just going to be black and white. But if there was some sort of look that was leaning in that direction, and I've always been intrigued by playing with color and different color channels and things like that, where you could create your own version of black and white by mixing the three different color channels, so like how much red you contributes, how much blue contributes, and how much green, and you make up your own kind of gray value chart. So I was kind of fascinated by that, and I wanted to try it out. That was kind of the basis of it. And then, you know, literally on the makeup day, we were doing makeup tests, had a live stream from the camera through Resolve to a monitor, and I start playing with the look of the film with Bob, and I showed him, you know, this kind of technique of, you know, how, you know, if you want like this, you know, red, you know, or you know, flesh colored faces to go darker, you drop the red value down, and if you want the skies to go dark, you drop the blue value down. And if you understand that, you know, what actually happens, it's basically like a black and white piece of film with a blue filter on it. The red filter now is going to have, wherever it would have been blue is going to be dark or black. In the blue channel, it's going to be white or clear because that allows more blue in it. So those are the different things that you get with the different channels. And by adjusting them, you get this kind of, you know, wonderful kind of gray value palette. And then we just kissed color back into this new base, which has now been slightly distorted. Like skin tones would be a little darker, skies would be black or blacker, depending if there's blue in it. And then you add a little color back in, it comes up with something interesting look. So it was almost immediate. We were screwing around with it beforehand, but then on the makeup day, we just honed in on it. And then it was like, and Antoine loved it. And it was like, that's the look of the movie. So,
was that done like during production, or did you guys do most of that in post afterwards?
No, it was during the production. It was literally the first makeup test day. And then the way Bob likes to work is he likes to do timed dailies, and not just timed like, you know, red, green, and blue. It's, you know, windows and all the, basically the DI. And so what we did is we had Benny Estrada is a great dailies colorist. We showed him this technique of what we wanted to do, and then, you know, then you embellish it on there, and then you add other values and other windows and other things like that. And so basically, it was, the dailies looked like the movie. And in fact, I took all of the dailies color corrections, and then in the DI made that the basis of the DI, which they're kind of loath to do. They don't really like to do that.
Yeah.
But because we put so much time and effort into it, there was like, no, we'll just start from zero. It's like, we don't want to start from zero. Every day when we shot, we put a lot of time and effort into how much color, what's in the windows, all the various things that you throw all that away seems like a waste. And we did a similar thing on Hugo to great effect. We used basically the basis of the dailies color correction as the DI, essentially. I mean, and you still have to modify it. It's not like it's automatic.
Yeah.
Because when you do, not to go off on a tangent, but when you do dailies color correction, you don't necessarily have the entire scene in front of you when you're doing it. But then when you cut the movie together and you put one scene against another, then you even it all back out again. But at least you have a good starting point. You have what the intention of the filmmaker was, at the moment it was photographed. So
I do have to say, if you ever go on tangents, don't worry, because I enjoy them. So it's all informative.
Thank you.
No, in one of the interviews when I was researching for this, you talked about Antoine being incredibly collaborative in the creative process. I was wondering if you had any examples of that from the shoot.
A lot of it stemmed from me being the second unit director and DP, where some directors are kind of micromanagers, and they have very articulate boards, and they just want what they want. What I liked about him and other people who are like him, usually it's a very secure director who is, I don't want what I want more than I want. So if you have more, please give it to me. So he's one of those people where I describe an idea and I said, well, what if we did this? What if I shot it this way? And it's like, go for it. Just do it. And so the collaboration is, here's what I need to sell the story. If you have another idea that does that and does more, please do. So there's a lot of so many scenes that we shot. Like one of the things we did was in the railroad camp. They were shooting essentially what I would call the meat and potatoes. It's just what's the scripted stuff. Then he wanted other things. He wanted, what is the life like there? What does it feel like? What is the butcher shop really doing? There's sort of non-scripted scenes, and he said, please show me the life of the place. And I was able to then shoot. There's a fire gag that if you look at the guys on the literally like hammering the nails into the railroad ties. I shot a bunch of different things on top of that with long lenses and wavy stuff, and that inspired then an effect shot, which was a giant sunball with silhouettes of the guys doing it. So it's that kind of stuff. So it wasn't quite the script. It was, what does it feel like? What emotional tone do you get from it? And that's like a ball if you do what I do. That you get to contribute and collaborate and come up with what you think would be good. And then when you have people as good as Antoine and Bob, then they can look at it and go, oh, that would be great. Now that you brought it to that level, what if we brought it to this level? And that's the part. It happened in just about every scene that I touched, in the alligator scene in particular, and definitely the battle. The battle is originally was supposed to be one shot, that the entire battle would be literally one shot, starting with the opening shot where you see him marching and the guys getting killed in front of him, and then they are attacking the snipers and the snipers attacking them, and then it continues to go all the way around the horn and eventually ends up on the close-up of him getting blown away. That was supposedly what we're going to do. So I previs the hell out of it here, literally with these wheels and everything in my house. And I kept on working on it to get the idea of it. And then that determined how I would shoot it. What kind of camera rigs and all that stuff. The cable cam is what I ultimately needed. We thought we could do with a drone, but it was too precise for it to be a drone, so it had to be a cable cam. But it dictated how we would do it, and then we just kept on embellishing it. It was like, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And it's not cool in like it's like an action movie cool. It's like cool meaning like it would really tell the story in one kind of go, what they were up against, the suicide mission that they were in, that they were picked for the suicide mission, and they would pick this particular group. And so that's what we did. And I kept on playing with it, and I would confer with Bob and Antoine. I'd show them updates. And eventually that's what we're doing. And then, I was entrusted with setting up those camera positions and grabbing those shots. And we collaborated on like 2 of them where we did it with everybody there. And then I did another 2 of those runs while they were shooting something else. I finished those off myself. So that's that kind of collaboration. So it's it permeated everything that we were doing. It's hard to isolate it in like a perfect example of it, but just about everything we did was inspired by us trying to contribute and add to what he originally wanted. And then it starts to change and alter and becomes a film that looks like Emancipation compared to what originally was conceived as.
So you mentioned the alligator scene, and there's there's the other scene with the horses on fire and what have you. And in one of your interviews, there was a moment where someone asked you about the alligator and the horse fire, and you were talking about how, I guess for the fire, you sent it off to Mill and there was another company. And I was thinking in there, because we've talked a lot, you and I, and a lot of times I feel like people ask you, like, which do you prefer? Do you prefer practical or visual? Or do you prefer, do you miss visual effects or practical effects? And I'm wondering if, because like going through that interview and you were like, yeah, we sent it off to Mill and they used this software to create the fire. But I'm wondering if you miss that sort of creativity or the ingenuity that's required to pull off a practical effect, sort of like what you did with Apollo 13 or what you did with, Titanic with the ship upside down and sort of rotating things with the lipstick camera. Like, do you miss that element of having to like figure out how to pull off something as opposed to just, asking the effects, the digital compositors to come up with something?
Yeah, that's a tough question because, part of what we did back then is that's the only way you could do it.
Yeah.
There's no other way of doing it. And now, when you talk about practical effects, it's also what's practical about the practical effects. How long does it take? How much stage time does it take? What's the net gain of it? If there is no real great net gain, then you're doing it just for the religion of doing it. That and everybody likes, we want to do everything in camera. It's like, yeah, you do and you don't. When you actually go to sit there and do and shoot every element and do everything and then put it together and then say, oh well, now that I kind of roped into this particular element, like used to shoot miniatures a lot. That's all we did is shoot miniatures, and I liked it, and I didn't like the CG version of it because it wasn't as photographically accurate. And I could never get the lighting to be just right and the reflections and all the various things I like about the happy accidents. But now you can. So you need a pretty compelling reason not to do it. And you have to have a certain, goal or gain from doing it. So I don't miss it quite so much. I would, because I now sort of get involved. I use Unreal and all these various things, so I could preview the lighting the way I'd like that I would have lit it if it were a real model or a real building or a real ship or whatever. So it's still practical to me because I make the CG portion very strict in terms of this is what it would be in real life. Hence, this is what I would have photographed, and then I still get the same value out of it, but I get the convenience. It's sort of like digital and film. You can shoot on film, and yes, it's lovely, except it's a pain in the ass, especially at this point when there's one lab in the world that'll develop film. The cameras aren't really kept up, so you then believe in the religion just to believe in it, like. Because with a digital camera, it's like you get all of that. And now with the new era, you get 20 stops of latitude, much more than film ever was. So, there's got to be a compelling reason why you have to shoot on film. You don't want to hamper yourself just for the sake of doing it. And so it's a little bit like that. Like I miss it to some degree because it was, because you could walk up to a thing and be kind of proud of the ship hanging out of the water in Titanic, or the Apollo 13 capsule being dropped by a helicopter into the ocean, and you're photographing. I mean, there's some moments like that, but then again, you have to weigh, how much does it cost? What's the visual am I going to get from it? But I tack everything is I want to shoot all of it myself, and whatever I can't or practically shouldn't do, then it goes like a tier down. So first, everything I could do in camera, including fire and physical, stuff, like the plantation in particular, can't set it on fire, not allowed to.
I was gonna say.
And what I did in Interview with the Vampires, I shot because we had the same plantation type idea. So I built a metal facsimile of the building and set that on fire, rubber cement, shot it at 40 frames a second or whatever, and I was able to create the illusion that the building was on fire. But it wasn't great. It was good, but it wasn't great. And now I can do much better with CG simulations and things like that are now becoming far superior than shooting elements. And some elements you still want to do because it has a built-in animation, has built-in sort of gravity and physics that you have to be a master animator to do. But I now prefer what I do, getting off on a tangent, is to do simulations. So if I do simulations in CG, I create what I would have shot, including the cheats, the gravity cheats, and various things like that. And then I get something that's pretty natural looking. It looks like, and I could do take after take and get 5 different variations of something falling down or hitting a building or whatever. And I get some pretty natural looking stuff. So, including like in the case of the film, the roof collapse was something that they tried to animate. It's like, I don't want you to animate, I want a simulation. And I showed them in Cinema 4D a simulation of, this is what I want to get. I want to feel like this. And they did a simulation and I was very happy with it. And it would have been everything I would have gotten if I shot a miniature, except for it would take all day to shoot it and set it up and do, take 2 and take 3 and take 4. So again, you look at the practicality of what you're asking to be done, and is it going to be better? And that's your dividing line. If it's going to be better, you do what's better. If it's not going to be better, if it's just going to be an aside, but yet cost more money, then it's you're kind of I don't know the best word to describe it, but you're just fooling around.
Yeah, you're doing it for the religion, like you were saying. No, you've also said before that you like to look at the tone or use the tone to guide your process in creating like the tone of the project or the tone of the film. So how did you use when you read the script, how did you use the tone of this piece to help guide you in your creative process?
Well, part of it was when Bob and I went location scouting in Louisiana. They were going to originally shoot in Atlanta, and they were planning to shoot in Atlanta, and then something happened, and they punted and went to Louisiana, and that's when I got involved. Is we were still not struggling, but still grappling with what is the tone of the film, and we went location scouting, and I photographed stuff with my iPhone in the swamps on a boat, and while I was doing it, it looked like and felt like something that I was impressed with, which is the opening of The Shining. There's something about the music, the way the camera moved, the oddity of this place. It set up the location as a thing, and so something about that was really interesting. So we took some of the drone footage just from location scouting. We took some of the shots from my iPhone, and we went to the swamps, and we went in the boats and did all the various things. And when I put it together, and then we're still kind of coming up with what we want to do with the look of the film, and I added the Shining music to it, all of a sudden it changed the tone of the film from kind of a very action-oriented, straightforward, as written script, to having this other. And this is something that Antoine wanted. He wanted the, obviously the swamps and the area to be a character, because that's his journey that he has to overcome. He has to overcome the God-made, obstacles in his path. And so that didn't want to just be a backdrop. It wanted to feel like a living, breathing thing. So that's kind of how the tone happened. I mean, tone is so subjective, and it's so specific to the person who interprets it, but we all sort of agreed that when I put this thing together and showed Antoine, he really liked what it did. And so that inspired all of the drone footage. Somebody's calling me. Sorry about that. So at any rate, I forgot what I was saying.
Sorry, we were talking about how the tone guided you.
Yeah, and so that became, so it's not like a direct thing from the script. It's the first interpretation, the landscape and the environment, leads into that. Then when we're doing the makeup tests, what people look like in costume, and all of that starts to tell you what the tone is. And then as we started to shoot, Bob is inspired by it, Antoine's inspired by it, the way the camera moved. And then when I would fit my particular material into it, it had to feel like that portion of the movie. So we all kind of were on the same page tonally. But that means that, in a movie like this, it's not Avatar or something. So you're not trying to kind of wow the audience with an effect, or that you're trying to actually make it look like there wasn't anything in it, that we just simply photographed real life, and that's what the movie is. It's almost documentary style in that it doesn't lend itself to cinema trickery for the fun of it, because we enjoy that too. Big effects movies and things are fun to watch, but you don't take them terribly seriously. And if you take that kind of work and put it into a serious film, your tone is going to be off. So you have to kind of guide and now say, well, here's what we could do in a different movie, but in this movie, we're going to tuck it back to just what appears to be natural looking, to not detract from the story and not do it too much. So don't draw any attention to yourself. So a lot of it is very subtle, on purpose, based on the tone of this movie.
Now, you mentioned earlier the Crocodile Attack, so I'm wondering, what were some of the challenges in creating that scene?
All of it, pretty much. Because everybody has a preconceived notion of what that might be like, and then there's an economic portion to it, which it wasn't really adequately budgeted for. And so everything that you come up with is like, well, we don't have the money for that. We don't, so it became, a little bit of a struggle of how to convert what it could be or should be to what was originally planned, because the people who budget these things don't really know how to do that kind of thing, and we may be inventing it for the first time ourselves. And then I also had the in the back of your mind the bear attack and the Revenant as the benchmark, high watermark of what it should be like or feel like. And so that you start with that, and then the best solution for me to have Will be in most of it and contribute creatively to most of it is build a tank and put it in front of an LED wall so that he's not in murky, shitty, horrible water that you can't really photograph in anyway, and be able to do this kind of, it was a risky scene because it's leaning more into an effect than not. And the fact that he wrestles with an alligator and wins is also a bit of it's not a stretch because it could happen, but it's leaning into more of something that obviously could be only created in cinema. And the Revenant attack worked in such a way that they imitated the behavior of the bear so well that it was so peculiar that it acts that way that you sort of, even though it can't be real, you kind of like crossed the line and believed it, and it didn't take you out of the movie. So that's what makes it difficult, is you have a high watermark to try to hit. You have something that you can't really overdo to make it look superhero-ish. And you have to make it look perfectly natural and keep the actor involved. And much like they kept Leo involved in the bear attack. And then I had to devise the scene of how to actually shoot it. And some of it is what I stated before in an interview was I designed the action in such a way that the payoff of a real piece of acting is as a handoff to the CG shot, and then hands back off to another piece of acting. So I create like a CG bridge. So by the time you even get a chance to actually notice something, it's already done, it's already over, because the action is an action match. Like, if you twist his arm back, you do an overlap with the CG portion of it, and you do an overlap of what the next live action piece is going to be. So I kept it kind of fast and furious, and And so it took many iterations to do it. You start with a previs that was, a template for what we're going to shoot, so that we could then shoot the live action, get some gold from the live action of what you could really do underwater, what your motion is, how fast you move, how slow you move, and then redo the animation based on now the real stuff that you got, re-previs that, and then say, okay, that's the piece of action I need for this, and then glue the whole sequence together as one piece. So, all of it's involved. It's not haphazard. It's not, it's each step of the way properly done in proper order creates, what we did. And, I just hope that people like it and that it does its job in the film. But that's what it took to do it. So you probably know all the various things. It's the LED wall, real will, the front end of the puppet with that Legacy created. For the above water stuff, it was the back end of the puppet with two guys in the real swamp moving the tail around like crazy, cherry picking the right moments of the knife coming out and all that stuff. But all those are all live, and then marry that to what's happening underwater, and then create a full CG will and a full CG alligator, and of course the background to intercut with all of it. So, that was, so it basically used every technique that one could do, but primarily centered around some live action material as to keep it grounded.
Now, I have one last question for you. What would you say is your favorite guilty pleasure film or TV show to watch?
Well, I have a bunch of them, and because I just watched it recently, there's and no one ever quotes this type of film, but it's Family Man. Do you ever see Family Man?
Yeah, it's been a long time, but yeah.
It's really good. I generally don't quote Brett Ratner films as guilty pleasures, but I love Fables, and one of my favorite films, It's a Wonderful Life. And the what if scenario of it, and the performances and the conceit of the movie is something that I could, sit down and watch every so often. I like a lot of them, but we just watched Bridesmaids the other night.
That's a great one.
Tropic Thunder and stuff like that. So usually they're funny. They're as a guilty pleasure. That they're more like a slight, film, as opposed to like The Godfather or Godfather 2 or Raging Bull or something like that. But every once in a while, I feel I'm in the mood to watch Family Man.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you this week.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Yeah. And that's it for this week. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com. And of course, follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching. This video is made possible by our sponsors, AJA. We'd like to thank AJA for all their support and tell you to go to aja.com for all your production and post-production needs.